We'll now move to the report of the commissioners to the 227th General Assembly. And what we are planning to do is there are 9 of us that were commissioners or served as a YAD for this presbytery. And we will do something that was done at General Assembly. Hopefully we'll keep all of our remarks to 1 minute. And we will start with Shirley Wright Davis, and then up from my fellow commissioners, if you will be reminded of the order, and once the speaker in front of you has concluded his or her remarks, you're free to go. So Shirley, start with you.
Good morning. Thank you, moderator. Good morning, everyone. One word in 3 syllables. Amazing. It is truly a privilege to come before you today as one of your commissioners to the 227th General Assembly. It was an awesome experience. When I think about my experience in Milwaukee, one word continues to come to mind: transformational. I went to General Assembly already proud to be a Presbyterian, but I came home with an even greater appreciation for what it means to be a part of the Presbyterian Church USA. There's something very different about hearing that we are a connectional church and actually seeing the connectional church at work. At General Assembly, we had an opportunity to see the inner workings of our denomination up close: the committees, the conversations, the discernment, the parliamentary process, the worship, the fellowship, and yes, even the disagreements. We dealt with important issues ranging from social justice and the life and witness of the church to decisions about the future of our denomination, including where we will gather for the next General Assembly. I saw a church that is willing to wrestle with difficult questions. I saw people with different perspectives sit at the same tables. I saw commissioners take seriously the responsibility entrusted to them. And through it all, I saw people seeking to discern where God might be leading the church next. We are connected, we belong to one another, and together we are seeking to be the church God is calling us to be. It was an awesome experience, and I'm grateful to have been part of it. And now, my fellow commissioners look forward to sharing a little more of that experience with you today.
Thank you, Shirley. I love policy and good governance. I may not be the policy nerd that our stated clerk is, but I think we reveal our best selves when we are faithful and deliberate in our governance. GA 227 was an enjoyable and valuable experience for me. I saw more clearly how the Presbyterian Church USA has a wisdom of faithful discernment and how our polity works with Tom held checks and balances that respect our Constitution, our congregations, and most importantly, our faithful service to God. It would be easy to assume that a gathering of 500 individuals might veer into divisive issues of the day, producing decisions that turn on raw emotion and pitched rhetoric rather than leaning into our deep Presbyterian roots. That did not happen. On a number of occasions, deep but respectful disagreement sparked discernment that tempered the heat of emotion and offered additional thought or time or voice to move our denomination forward. Critics may argue that the denomination is not as quick as it should be in reaching a decision of consequence. I believe the larger arc of time in our faith are a testimony of the resolve to act decently in good order. Put another way, African wisdom suggests that it is always wise to act with burning patience. Do not avoid the tough issues facing us, but do not rush lightly to solutions that may not serve the greater good. The General Assembly serves, on the one hand, to gather and consider the voice of congregations throughout the denomination, but on the other hand, it is not a final decision maker for the denomination. Through the councils of the church, the governance remains vested, with God's help, in the congregations. Thank you. And Aaron?
Good morning. I'm Erin No, a teaching elder commissioner who served on the Financial Stewardship and Witness Committee. The General Assembly approved unified agency budgets for 2027 and 2028. Approximately 59% of funding in 2027 and 57% in 2028 is restricted to designated purposes, limiting the church's flexibility when new ministry needs arise. We saw this challenge as we considered restricted funds designated for world mission following its restructuring. Our committee recommended reviewing whether their oversight and use continue to honor donor intent, and the Assembly included this concern in its broader review. Faithful stewardship requires both honoring donor commitments and aligning resources with the church's evolving mission. Thank you.
I'm Zenda Bowie, and I hope that you can hear me. I worked on the Racial Justice Committee, and the work was hard. It's even difficult for me to give this report. We dealt with matters most of us would like to shelve. The committee had to review our history and ultimately recommended that Presbyterian Life and Witness address disparities. Yes, there are unfair differences in compensation, call, and leadership for people of color. And sadly, this recommendation had already been presented. We also recommended that for presbyteries lacking resources to access training, that Presbyterian Life and Witness consider needs-based support options. We voted that we implement a tracking system going back to the reunion of 1983, and many people did not want us to go that far. But we suggested that in order to adequately and appropriately repair harm. In addition to required anti-racism training for church leaders to be created by the Office of PLNW, we recommended editing the Book of Order to include that mandate. Racial Justice Committee delved into the 2022 Black Women and Girls Task Force, the Liberia Project, and as we try to understand how some teachings of missionaries may have contributed to demonization of African religion, please go to the PCUSA website. Search for racial justice. Even on our website, you have to look for it. Please read. Our church is not innocent. Our congregations are complicit. We harm when we say nothing and do nothing. But it was a blessing. Thank you. I think Davis is next.
Yeah. Boy, this minute is fast. So first of all, I served on the General Assembly Operations Committee. Again, that was tough work. And just a note about that, because I'm not really speaking about it. The first thing I ever did as a pastor for the Presbytery, like Presbytery work, was minutes review. I got to do that on the General Assembly level. What a blast. So I'm actually reporting about some of the important work we did was around Christian nationalism. And there were two motions that came forward out of the Reformed Identity in the United States Committee. One is an amendment to the Book of Order, the section on the foundations of our Presbyterian polity. So it's a theological statement. And we'll have to vote on it to ratify it later. The most important part of that, I will say, is it says the church rejects any ideology that seeks to establish Christianity as a privileged or dominant force through the power of the state, or that conflates religious identity with national, racial, or ethnic supremacy. The second thing we approved was a policy paper called Standing Against White Christian Nationalism. I'll just say I had more written here, but when you hear that, it sounds like we're trying to be anti-white, anti-Christian, and anti-nation. That is not true. It's about the clear-eyed separation of church and state, which is deeply American and deeply Presbyterian, and a realization that throughout the history, joining religious and political power have often been destructive and even deadly toward minorities and religious and ethnic enemies. So there's, I also want to encourage people, if you're interested in any of these things, go to PC Biz, and there's a simple search there. You can put in a word and then pull up these things. All right. I'm not sure who's next.
I think Raphael.
Yes, that's me. Buenos dias, mis hermanos y hermanas. And I say this in Spanish because I think we should start practicing a little Spanish. Because in 2028, the General Assembly is going to Puerto Rico, La Isla del Encanto. This was a very meaningful decision. The discussion was not always easy. Some questions about safety, review assumptions, and the stereotypes about Puerto Rico, and that caused a real hurt. One of the most powerful moments for me was when the former moderators gathering around the Reverend Ruth Faith Santana Grace as she spoke about Puerto Rico's story, dignity, and the contribution to our church. After that, uh, the was approval with the vote of 467-5, and the amazing celebration erupted that room. Everyone really happy, and for me, this is more the choose a beautiful place for hold General Assembly. Is an opportunity for our denomination to experience Puerto Rico culture, story, hospitality, and the deep theological and missional contribution to PCSA. That is, there are other issues I'd like to highlight coming from my committee, and it was probably one of the most difficult conversations in General Assembly 227. The elimination of the word mission and the most mission co-work positions. After long and painful discussions, the Assembly created a 7-member commission to review what's happening. This work will be historic rather than punitive. The idea is centering this work in truth telling, transparency, institutional learning, and the repair relationships. For me, both decisions remind us that being a connectional church means listening carefully, especially when the conversation is difficult. Really amazed to be with my colleagues, and again, I did this in my report and the commission handbook, but and James helped us a lot, even bringing coffee when everyone's really tired. Thank you, Andy, one more time. And after me come Morgan.
All right, hello. One thing I wanted to highlight about GA was that I experienced it as our church wrestling with a changing church landscape and how we can be the church in a changing world. So a few things. I was on the Climate and Environmental Justice Committee, and we were very excited to approve all of our things on the consent agenda, which means everyone was like, those things are good. We're not going to even need to discuss that any further. So things like divesting from companies that were an ethical violation of our denomination, investing in those that are encouraging renewable energy, and also providing resources for those who like rural, city, suburbs, all of the ways that we can invest in renewable energy. I will say 2 more things. We worked to establish guidelines in engaging AI, responsible use of AI for church leaders, which will impact all of us in a good way, I believe. And then also we learned from gun violence advocates and really got to support them and hear creative strategies for ending gun violence.
Hello, I'm Cameron Jolson, and I had the blessing and privilege of serving with the Gender and Sexuality Justice Committee. In this area, the Assembly voted to support, amongst many things, gender-affirming healthcare, ways for congregations to show their readiness toward calling LGBTQIA+ pastors, and comprehensive frameworks for addressing familial relationships and human sexuality. One of my big takeaways from the Assembly was the Assembly's sensitive, committed approach to restorative justice and equity for our Q+ siblings. We worked through wounds that were rooted in exclusion and condemnation. We allowed for disagreement, and we also tried to demonstrate love and respect for all voices. My other big takeaway was about the Young Adult Advisory Delegates, or YADs, among us, and you'll hear from one after me. They shaped our conversations with such courage, imagination, and tremendous trust. And they are a huge reason why I think the church and our future look brilliant. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Price. I was the Young Adult Advisory Delegate, and serving this presbytery was such an honor. I'm thankful to have served on the Constitutional Interpretation Committee. My committee's work focused on the changes to the Constitution and authoritative interpretations on the Book of Order. The work was such an important and very theologically and morally challenging, discussing overtures including healthcare, world mission and non-disclosure clauses, and a difficult overture discussing monogamy and its relationships to pastors, coming from a right-wing organization called Presbyterians for the Kingdom. These discussions helped me through the work of the church and to see how people can come together and discuss and discern topics with such weight. Plenary filled me with such spiritually invigorating discussions with other YADs and my fellow commissioners. I'm so grateful for this experience and will continue to cherish it and keep it close as a Presbyterian. Thank you.
Well, in sum, you've heard 9 disparate voices that each faithfully sought to discern God's will for our denomination. In 2022, when I served as a commissioner to the 225th General Assembly, our plenary sessions were held via Zoom. We missed the opportunity to bond together as a team, and I can just say it was a gift, an honor, and privilege to serve with these amazing commissioners and the best young adult advisory delegate in all of Milwaukee. I believe we represented you well. I also lift up the corresponding members of the Presbytery of Greater Atlanta who were present in Milwaukee, our staff and our partners in ministry from Columbia Seminary. They helped support a thoughtful and productive, albeit exhausting 10 days of serving our denomination. You'll also find in your handbook on pages 11 through 15 some additional reports that are written. But again, thank you for this opportunity to serve you.